He was the kind of kid you don't remember even if you saw him every single day. The kind that blended into the background like a shadow on a cloudy afternoon. If you walked into the classroom late, you wouldn't notice him. If he skipped school for a week, nobody would ask where he went. He sat near the back, not because he wanted to be cool, but because it felt safer there. Less eyes, less judgment, less disappointment. His clothes were always clean but clearly secondhand, a little faded, a little worn out, like they'd already lived a life before landing on his skinny frame. His shoes talked louder than he ever did, squeaking softly when he walked down the hallway, announcing his presence in a way he never could with his voice. Teachers didn't hate him. That would have required effort. They just didn't see him. When attendance was called, his name was just another sound they mumbled through, and when he answered, his voice barely rose above a whisper. Sometimes the teacher wouldn't hear him at all and would mark him absent until someone else spoke up. Nobody ever did. Not because they were cruel, but because they simply didn't care enough to notice. To them, he was just there. Existing. Taking up space. At lunch, he sat alone more often than not. Not because kids told him to get lost, but because no one ever told him to sit with them either. There's a difference. Being rejected hurts, but being invisible hits deeper. He'd watch groups laugh, trade snacks, talk about video games, sports, weekend plans. He wanted to jump in so bad his chest sometimes ached from holding it in. But every time he imagined opening his mouth, his mind would flood with all the ways it could go wrong. What if his voice cracked? What if they ignored him mid-sentence? What if they laughed? So he stayed quiet, poking at his food, pretending he wasn't hungry for more than just lunch. At home, things weren't much louder. His parents weren't bad people. They were just tired. Tired from work, tired from bills, tired from life constantly asking for more than they had. They loved him in the way people love when they're stretched thin. They made sure he was fed, that he had a bed, that he did his homework. But dreams, those weren't exactly a dinner table topic. Survival came first. When he talked about school, the conversations were short and practical. Do your work. Listen to your teachers. Get good grades so you don't struggle like us. No one asked what he actually liked. No one asked what made his heart race or his mind light up. The truth was, even he didn't fully know yet. All he knew was that there was something inside him that felt restless, like a motor that never shut off. When the house went quiet at night and everyone else fell asleep, that's when he felt the most awake. He'd stare at the ceiling, replaying moments from the day. The laughs he didn't join. The questions he knew the answer to but didn't raise his hand for. The way his teacher praised another kid for something he'd secretly understood too. It wasn't jealousy. It was something heavier. A feeling that he was standing right next to his own life, watching it happen without him. At school, he wasn't bad academically. He wasn't great either. Just average. The worst label you can give a kid who's already invisible. Average doesn't get attention. Average doesn't get help. Average doesn't get encouragement. Average gets forgotten. When report cards came out, his parents would glance at them, nod, and move on. At least you're not failing, they'd say, like that was the finish line. Teachers echoed the same vibe. He's fine where he is. Fine. That word followed him everywhere like a quiet curse. During group projects, he was the kid everyone forgot to assign a role to. So he'd end up doing whatever nobody else wanted. Writing names. Cleaning up. Standing there while others argued and laughed. Sometimes he had ideas, good ones too, but by the time he worked up the nerve to say anything, the group had already moved on. He learned quickly that speaking up didn't change much, so he stopped trying. Silence became his armor. If you don't speak, you can't be wrong. If you don't try, you can't fail. At least that's what he told himself. Recess was the loudest reminder of where he stood. Kids ran, shouted, played games with rules he never fully learned because nobody taught him. Sports were the worst. Not because he hated them, but because every time teams were picked, his name came last. Always. Sometimes the captains would look at him like they were doing charity work when they finally called him over. Other times, there'd be an odd number and he'd just be told to sit out. He'd nod like it didn't matter, like he preferred it that way, then sit on the bench watching everyone else live loudly. He learned how to disappear in plain sight, how to walk through hallways without bumping into anyone, how to keep his head down just enough to avoid eye contact, how to laugh quietly when someone made a joke, even if it hurt a little that nobody noticed he was laughing too. Adults like to say kids are cruel, but sometimes it's not cruelty that breaks you. It's indifference. The feeling that if you vanished tomorrow, the world would keep spinning exactly the same. There were moments, small ones, where someone almost noticed. A substitute teacher once asked him to read out loud and paused, surprised, because he read smoothly, confidently even. "You're pretty good," she said. Just that. 2 seconds. Then the class moved on. Another time, a classmate copied his homework and got praised for it. He watched from his seat as the teacher smiled at someone else for his work. He didn't say anything. He never did. Inside, though, something was building. Quietly, slowly, like pressure behind a dam. He didn't have the words for it yet, but he felt it every day. A mix of frustration, curiosity, and this stubborn little spark that refused to die. On the bus ride home, he'd stare out the window, imagining different versions of himself. One where he was confident. One where people listened. One where he mattered. Those versions felt unreal, like characters from a movie, but they kept him company. Social media didn't help. He'd scroll through clips of kids his age doing amazing things. Playing instruments like pros. Winning competitions. Getting millions of views for just being themselves. The comments were filled with praise, fire emojis, people calling them legends. He wondered what that felt like. To be seen. To be celebrated. Then he'd look at his own reflection in the dark screen of his phone and feel stupid for even thinking about it. "That's not you," he'd tell himself. "That's for other people." The guidance counselor met with him once a year, flipping through his file like it was a grocery list. "Any career ideas?" she asked without really looking up. He shrugged. What was he supposed to say? That he didn't know, but he felt like there was something special inside him just waiting for air? That sounded dumb even in his own head. So he said the safest answer. "I don't know yet." She nodded, wrote something down, and sent him on his way. By the time he hit middle school, being ignored had become normal. Comfortable, even. There's a weird peace that comes with low expectations. Nobody expected him to lead, so he didn't. Nobody expected him to shine, so he stayed dim. Nobody expected him to fail either, so he just floated in the middle, unnoticed but untouched. From the outside, it looked like an easy life. No pressure, no spotlight. But inside, it felt like suffocating slowly. What nobody knew was that every time someone talked over him, every time he was picked last, every time his name was forgotten, it added fuel to that quiet fire inside his chest. He didn't know what he'd do with it yet. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have a mentor. He didn't even have confidence. All he had was this growing feeling that his life couldn't stay like this forever. That one day, somehow, things would have to change. At night, when the world finally shut up, he'd sit on his bed and let his thoughts run wild. He imagined a moment, just one, where everyone who ever ignored him would have to stop and look. Not out of revenge, not to prove them wrong, but to prove to himself that he wasn't invisible by default. That maybe he was invisible because he hadn't stepped into whatever he was meant to be yet. He didn't know it then, but this was the beginning. Not the flashy beginning people like to talk about. No big win. No viral moment. Just a quiet kid, living a quiet life, carrying a loud dream he didn't yet understand. The kind of beginning nobody claps for. The kind nobody films. The kind that looks like nothing at all. And that's exactly why everyone ignored him. Not because he was nothing, but because they couldn't see what he was becoming. By the time people started labeling him, it felt almost official, like the world had finally decided who he was allowed to be. The word didn't come all at once. It slipped in quietly, wrapped in casual comments and polite smiles. He's an average student. He's doing okay. Nothing to worry about. Nobody said it like an insult, which somehow made it worse. Because insults can be fought. Labels said calmly, confidently, by adults with clipboards and degrees, those stick. In class, teachers had favorites. Everyone knew who they were. The loud kids, the smart kids, the troublemakers. Even the class clown had a role. But him, he didn't fit into a category worth remembering. When his hand accidentally went up to answer a question, the teacher sometimes looked right past him, calling on someone else. Not on purpose, just habit. He learned to lower his hand halfway through, like his body already knew it wasn't his turn to be heard. One afternoon, after a math test, the teacher walked around handing papers back. She stopped at his desk for half a second longer than usual. "You passed," she said, like she was giving him a participation trophy for existing. Not "good job." Not "nice work." Just passed. He looked down at the paper. A solid score. Not amazing, not bad. Right in the middle. The land of no reaction. He folded the test carefully and slid it into his backpack, feeling something twist in his stomach. He didn't know why it bothered him so much. He told himself he should be grateful. At least he wasn't failing, right? At home, it was the same energy. His parents went to parent-teacher conferences and came back with that familiar tone. Not worried. Not impressed. Just neutral. "They say you're doing fine," his mom said while washing dishes. "Just keep doing what you're doing." That sentence echoed in his head later that night. Keep doing what you're doing. But what he was doing felt like standing still while everyone else moved forward. He started noticing how differently teachers talked to other kids. When the smart kid messed up, it was potential. "You can do better than this." When he messed up, it was expected. "That's about right." When someone else showed interest in something, adults leaned in. When he mentioned liking something, the conversation died fast. Like it didn't fit the story they'd already written for him. One day in English class, the teacher asked everyone to write a short paragraph about their future. Most kids wrote the usual stuff. Athlete, doctor, YouTuber, influencer. When it was time to share, the confident kids went first. Applause, smiles, encouragement. When the teacher got to him, she skimmed his page quickly. "You can pass," she said, moving on without reading it out loud. He sat there, heat creeping up his neck, pretending it didn't matter. But it did. A lot. Friends, if you could even call them that, weren't much better. They didn't bully him outright. They just didn't take him seriously. When he said he wanted to try something new, someone laughed like it was a joke. "You? Really?" They didn't mean to be cruel. They just couldn't imagine him being anything other than what he already was. The quiet kid. The background character. The NPC in everyone else's story. Over time, he started believing them. That's the dangerous part. When enough people treat you like you're average, you start acting like it. He stopped pushing himself in class. Stopped raising his hand at all. Stopped imagining big futures because it hurt less not to hope. He told himself he was being realistic. That dreamers were the ones who ended up disappointed. Better to stay grounded. Better to stay safe. But realism felt a lot like giving up. Every now and then, he'd catch himself doing something that didn't fit the average label. Solving a problem faster than expected. Picking up a skill quicker than others. Noticing patterns people missed. But instead of feeling proud, he felt confused. Almost guilty. Like he was breaking some unspoken rule. Like, hey, you're not supposed to be good at this. So he'd downplay it. Mess up on purpose sometimes. Let others go first. Shrink himself back into the shape people expected. There was this one kid in class who loved reminding everyone where they stood. Not a bully exactly, more like a walking scoreboard. Grades, sports, popularity, he ranked it all. One day he looked at him and said, "You're cool, man, but you're just normal." Normal. He laughed when he said it, like it was a compliment. The words hit harder than any insult. Normal felt like a ceiling he'd never be allowed to break through. The school system loved kids like him. Kids who didn't cause trouble. Kids who didn't ask questions. Kids who blended in and followed instructions. On paper, he was perfect. In reality, he was slowly disappearing. His personality got quieter. His opinions stayed locked inside. He became the kid teachers used as an example of average progress, never exceptional growth. At night, that quiet fire inside him burned a little stronger. He'd replay conversations in his head. Things he wished he'd said. Moments he wished he'd taken a risk. He wondered when exactly people decided who he was. And why nobody ever asked him if they were right. He tried talking himself out of it. Not everyone is meant to be special, he thought. Someone has to be normal. But deep down, that didn't sit right. Because being normal wasn't the problem. Being underestimated was. Being boxed in. Being told, without words, to stay in his lane even though he never chose one. One evening, while doing homework at the kitchen table, his dad glanced over and said, "You're not like those top kids, and that's okay. Just aim for something stable." It was meant to be comforting, practical, responsible, but it felt like another door quietly closing, like another adult gently lowering the bar so he wouldn't trip over it. At school the next day, there was an announcement about an upcoming competition. Nothing huge, just one of those events schools love to brag about later. A few kids buzzed with excitement. Teachers started recommending certain students. His name never came up, not even as an afterthought. He watched from his seat as lists were made and futures were imagined for other people. Something in him shifted then. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle crack in the way he saw things. For the first time, he realized this wasn't temporary. This wasn't a phase. If he didn't do something, this average label would follow him forever. Into high school, into jobs, into life. People would keep telling him who he was until one day, he woke up and realized he'd agreed with them without even noticing. Still, he didn't speak up. Not yet. He wasn't brave enough. All he could do was feel it. The frustration, the quiet anger, the sense that he was more than what showed on the surface. He didn't have proof. He didn't have results. Just a feeling. And feelings don't mean much in a world that only respects evidence. So he kept his head down, kept getting by, kept being labeled fine. But inside, something was preparing, like a muscle being stretched, like a storm gathering far away, out of sight, waiting for the right moment to break. Everyone around him thought they had him figured out. They thought he was average. They thought he had no spark. They thought there was nothing special there. What they didn't know was that labels don't kill potential. They just hide it. And hidden things have a way of surprising people when they finally come out. It started as something small, almost accidental, like most things that end up changing your life. No announcement. No decision written down anywhere. Just a quiet pull toward something he couldn't explain. While the rest of the house slept, while the TV downstairs murmured itself into silence and the street outside went dead quiet, that's when it happened. That's when he felt most like himself. Every night, after homework was done and lights were supposed to be out, he stayed awake. Not scrolling endlessly like other kids, not chasing distractions. He waited. He listened to the rhythm of the house, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the occasional car passing by. When he was sure nobody was watching, he'd sit up, heart beating just a little faster, like he was doing something illegal even though he wasn't. This was his time. At first, he didn't even know what he was practicing. It wasn't some big dream yet. It was curiosity, a random interest that grabbed him and wouldn't let go. Something he'd stumbled onto once and felt that strange click in his chest, like, yeah, this feels right. During the day, he never talked about it, never hinted at it, because experience had taught him that the fastest way to kill something you cared about was to let other people look at it too soon. So he kept it secret. He practiced in silence. No music blasting. No dramatic moments. Just focus. Raw, ugly, beginner-level effort. He messed up a lot. Way more than he got right. Sometimes he'd stare at his work and feel stupid, like, why am I even doing this? Other times, hours would pass without him noticing, like time had decided to mind its own business. Those were the nights that kept him going. Nights where the world disappeared and it was just him and the thing he was slowly getting better at. During the day, nobody had a clue. At school, he was still the quiet kid. Still average. Still overlooked. Teachers didn't suddenly notice him. Friends didn't ask questions. That double life was exhausting, but in a weird way, it felt good. Like he had something nobody could take from him because nobody even knew it existed. While people were busy labeling him, ranking him, ignoring him, he was building something quietly behind the scenes. There were nights he wanted to quit. Plenty of them. Nights where nothing worked and frustration crawled up his spine. Nights where he felt ridiculous, sitting there alone while everyone else seemed to be living louder, easier lives. He'd think about all the times people had laughed or shrugged him off and wonder if they were right. Maybe he really was just average. Maybe this was just another phase he'd abandon like everything else. But then he'd remember how it felt when he made even the smallest improvement. How that tiny win hit harder than any compliment he'd ever received. Nobody clapped. Nobody praised him. But inside, something clicked into place. Like proof. Proof that effort mattered. That progress was real, even when it was invisible. He didn't have fancy equipment. Didn't have lessons. Didn't have a mentor hyping him up. Half the time, he didn't even know if he was doing things the right way. He just knew he was doing them his way. Learning from mistakes. Watching, listening, absorbing everything he could. When other kids were sleeping or messing around online, he was grinding in silence, stacking tiny improvements that didn't look like much on their own. At school, people complained about being tired, about homework, about how boring things were. He nodded along, played his part. Nobody knew he was exhausted for a different reason. Nobody knew his brain was running on late nights and stubborn hope. He'd sit in class, eyes heavy, but inside his head, he was replaying what he'd practiced the night before. What went wrong? What went right? What he wanted to try next? That secret habit started changing him in ways nobody noticed at first. He walked a little straighter, thought a little deeper. He still didn't talk much, but when he did, there was a different energy behind it. Not confidence exactly, more like quiet certainty. Like he knew something the rest of the room didn't. And in a way, he did. The craziest part was how protective he became of it. When someone casually asked him what he did after school, he shrugged. Nothing much. When a teacher suggested an extracurricular activity, he politely declined. He didn't want advice, didn't want opinions, didn't want anyone touching this thing before it was ready. This was his escape, his training ground, his proof that he wasn't as empty as everyone assumed. Some nights, his parents would knock lightly and tell him to go to sleep. He'd quickly hide what he was doing, heart racing, promising he would. Sometimes he did. Sometimes he waited until the house went quiet again and started right back up. Not because he was rebellious, but because this felt important in a way nothing else ever had. He started noticing patterns. How consistency beat motivation every time. How bad days didn't mean he was bad. How progress wasn't loud or flashy, it was sneaky. It showed up when you weren't looking. Those lessons sank deeper than anything he learned in class. They weren't graded. They weren't praised. But they stuck. Every once in a while, doubt hit him hard. He'd ask himself the scary questions. What if this leads nowhere? What if I'm wasting my time? What if everyone else is right about me? Those thoughts were loud, especially late at night. But then another thought followed, quieter but stronger. What if this is the thing? What if this is what they don't see yet? That was enough to keep going. Weeks turned into months. Months into almost a year. Still no audience. Still no validation. Just repetition. Discipline. Growth that only he could measure. If someone had walked in and watched him, they probably wouldn't have been impressed. Not yet. He was still rough. Still learning. Still far from anything worth applauding. And that was fine. Because this wasn't about impressing anyone. Not anymore. He didn't realize it, but this secret habit was doing more than sharpening a skill. It was rebuilding him, piece by piece, teaching him patience, teaching him resilience, teaching him how to sit with discomfort and not run away. While the world saw an average kid drifting through life, he was quietly becoming someone else entirely. There were moments, rare but powerful, where he caught a glimpse of his future self. Not famous, not perfect, just confident, capable, seen. Those moments scared him a little because they felt real. Because for the first time, the idea of being more than average didn't feel like a fantasy. It felt possible. And the wild part, the people around him still had no idea. Teachers still underestimated him. Friends still talked over him. His parents still worried about practicality. Nothing on the outside had changed. He was still ignored, still overlooked, still underestimated. But on the inside, everything was different. Because while the world slept on him, he was wide awake. And he was getting ready for something nobody saw coming. The first time he let anyone see it, everything went wrong. It wasn't supposed to be a big deal. That's what he told himself over and over again, like a lie you repeat until it almost sounds true. Just a small opportunity. A school thing. Low stakes. Nothing that could really hurt him. But deep down, his chest felt tight for days leading up to it, like his body already knew what his brain was trying to ignore. The announcement came casually, like most school announcements do. An event. A showcase. A competition. Nothing elite. Nothing famous. Just a chance for students to participate and show something they'd been working on. Teachers encouraged kids to sign up. Some pushed their favorites forward immediately. Others volunteered without hesitation, loud and confident, already picturing themselves winning. He hadn't planned on signing up. Not really. His name hovered on the edge of the list in his mind, but he kept pushing it away. This thing he practiced every night. It was his. Private. Safe. Letting people see it felt like stepping out without armor. But then someone said it. Anyone can join. Anyone. That word messed with him. Because if anyone could join, Then what excuse did he have not to? He thought about all those nights alone. All that effort with no witnesses. If he backed out now, what was the point of any of it? So before he could overthink it, before fear could grab him by the throat, he raised his hand. The room didn't react. No gasps. No whispers. No, oh damn. Just a couple of confused looks. One kid leaned over and said, "Wait, you're doing it," with a half smile like he thought it was a joke. The teacher paused, eyebrows lifting slightly, then nodded. "All right," she said, writing his name down like it didn't mean anything. That tiny moment should have been a warning. It wasn't hype. It was surprise. The kind that says, you. The days leading up to the event were brutal. Suddenly, his secret didn't feel so strong. Doubt crept in everywhere. At night, when he practiced, every mistake felt louder. Every flaw felt permanent. He started noticing all the gaps in his skill, all the ways he wasn't ready. He told himself it was nerves. That everyone felt like this. But something felt different. He wasn't scared of failing. He was scared of confirming what everyone already believed about him. The day arrived fast. Too fast. The room was bigger than he imagined. Too bright. Too open. Chairs lined up. People talking loudly, laughing, checking their phones like this was just another way to kill time. He stood off to the side, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He watched other kids go up. Some crushed it. Some messed up and laughed it off. They had confidence to fall back on. He didn't. When his name was called, it felt unreal. Like they were talking about someone else. He stood up slowly, legs feeling stiff, heavy, like they didn't belong to him. A couple of kids whispered. Someone snickered. He heard it. Pretended he didn't. He took his spot. The room felt dead quiet, but not in a respectful way. More like bored silence. People waiting to see how bad this would be. His hands shook. Not violently, but enough that he noticed. He took a breath, tried to remember all those nights alone, all that work. This was supposed to be the moment it mattered. And then it fell apart. Not all at once. Piece by piece. The worst kind. The first mistake hit like a punch. Small, but obvious. He tried to recover, but his mind went blank. The second mistake came faster. Then another. His rhythm disappeared. His confidence evaporated. The thing he could do so smoothly in the dark, alone, now felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else entirely. He could feel eyes on him now. Not curious. Not impressed. Judging. He heard someone whisper, "Told you." Another laugh, not loud, but sharp enough to cut. His face burned. His heart raced. Panic took over. He rushed. That only made it worse. By the time he finished, he knew. He didn't need reactions. He didn't need feedback. He knew. Silence. Not applause, silence. Awkward silence. The kind where people don't know whether to clap out of politeness or pretend it didn't happen. A few half-hearted claps followed, scattered and weak. The teacher smiled too quickly and said, "Thank you for participating," in that tone adults use when they don't know what else to say. He walked back to his seat like he was underwater. Sounds were muffled. Faces blurred. Someone patted his shoulder and said, "Hey, at least you tried," which somehow felt worse than being laughed at. That sentence carried pity. And pity was the one thing he couldn't stand. The rest of the event passed in a haze. He didn't watch anyone else. Didn't care who won. All he could think about was how stupid he felt. How exposed. How naive. Every doubt he'd ever had came rushing back, louder than ever. See, this is why you stay quiet. This is why you don't step out of line. After it was over, kids talked about the best performances. His name didn't come up. Not even as a joke. He was erased again, but this time it hurt more because he'd put himself out there. He grabbed his bag and left early, head down, moving fast like he could outrun the shame. At home, he went straight to his room, closed the door, sat on the edge of his bed and stared at the floor. The silence felt heavy. He replayed every second in his head, torturing himself with it. The mistakes, the laughs, the looks. He felt sick, angry, embarrassed, all at once. That night, he didn't practice. For the first time in months, he just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling hollow. The thing that once felt like his escape now felt like a reminder of his failure. Maybe this was proof. Proof that the world had been right about him all along. Average. Overconfident for even trying. Out of his depth. Tears came quietly. Not dramatic sobs. Just that slow burn behind the eyes that finally spills over. He wiped them away angrily, more mad at himself for caring than anything else. Why did he think he could do this? Why did he believe he was different? The next day at school was worse. A few kids mentioned it in passing. That thing yesterday was wild. Someone smirked when he walked by. Teachers didn't say anything, which somehow made it louder. No encouragement. No good effort. Just business as usual. Like his failure wasn't even worth addressing. He shrank, even more than before. His shoulders curled inward. His voice dropped lower. He avoided eye contact like it was dangerous. The thought of practicing again made his stomach twist. Every time he thought about it, he saw that room. Those faces. That silence. He told himself he was done. That it wasn't meant for him. That this was what happened when kids like him stepped out of their place. For a moment, quitting felt like relief. Like he could go back to being invisible without the weight of hope dragging behind him. But deep under the embarrassment, under the anger, under the shame, something refused to die. A small, stubborn voice whispered, "Not yet, not like this." He didn't listen to it that night. But it stayed, waiting. Because sometimes, public failure isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the thing that forces you to decide who you really are going to be. The breaking moment didn't come with a scream or some dramatic snap you could point to and say, "That's it, that's when everything changed." It came quietly, the way real breaking moments usually do. It came after the embarrassment had settled in, after the whispers died down, after the world went back to not caring. That was the part nobody warned him about. Failure doesn't just hurt in the moment. It lingers. It sits with you. It follows you into empty rooms and late nights and shows up when you're too tired to fight it. 4 days after that public mess, he moved through life on autopilot. Wake up. School. Home. Repeat. He answered questions with shrugs. Ate without tasting. Laughed when he was supposed to. Inside, though, he felt cracked. Not shattered. Just fractured enough that everything felt off. Like he'd slipped slightly out of alignment with himself. He avoided the thing he loved like it was radioactive. The corner of his room where he used to practice felt different now. Heavy. Accusatory. Every time his eyes landed on it, his chest tightened. It reminded him of how confident he'd felt before. How sure. And how fast that confidence had been humiliated in front of people who already didn't believe in him. He told himself he was being smart by stepping back. Mature. Realistic. But deep down, it felt like running. One night, he sat on his bed in the dark, phone glowing in his hand, scrolling mindlessly. Videos. Clips. People winning. People succeeding. People being celebrated for the very thing he'd just failed at. The comments were brutal, even on strangers' posts. Mid. Overhyped. Trash. He imagined those words aimed at him, replaying the event in his head again, like his brain was addicted to punishing him. He tossed the phone aside and pressed his palms into his eyes. His breathing got heavier, faster. Not panic, exactly. More like pressure. Like everything he'd been holding in for years was finally demanding attention. The ignoring, the labeling, the low expectations. The way people smiled politely when he talked about effort but never really believed in him. It all stacked up, brick by brick, until there was no room left to pretend it didn't matter. For the first time, he asked himself the question he'd been avoiding. What if they're right? What if I'm not built for this? What if that moment on stage wasn't bad luck or nerves, but the truth finally catching up to me? That thought scared him more than anything else. Because if it was true, then all those late nights, all that effort, all that quiet hope meant nothing. He stood up suddenly, restless, pacing the room. His hands clenched and unclenched like they didn't know what to do with themselves. Anger bubbled up, sharp and unfamiliar. Not at the kids who laughed. Not even at the teachers who overlooked him. At himself. For daring to want more. For stepping out of line. For believing he could be something different. Why do I even care? He muttered under his breath, voice cracking. The question hung in the air, unanswered. He did care. That was the problem. He cared so much it hurt. And caring made him vulnerable. Caring was the reason this failure cut so deep. He stopped pacing and stared at his reflection in the dark window. The room behind him was dim, but his face was clear enough. Tired eyes. Slumped shoulders. A kid who looked exactly like everyone expected him to look. Average. Small. Forgettable. For a second, he didn't recognize himself. Or maybe he recognized himself too well. That's when it hit. Not a thought. A feeling. This heavy, suffocating realization that if he quit now, nothing would change. The world wouldn't feel bad for him. People wouldn't suddenly understand. Teachers wouldn't rewrite their opinions. Friends wouldn't look at him differently. If he quit, he'd just sink right back into invisibility, except this time with proof that he'd tried and failed. This time with regret layered on top of everything else. He sank down onto the floor, back against the bed, knees pulled to his chest. His breathing slowed. His thoughts sharpened. And in that quiet, something inside him snapped into focus. Not rage. Not confidence. Resolve. He whispered it at first, like saying it out loud might break it. I didn't fail because I'm nothing. The words felt strange in his mouth, unfamiliar but powerful. He said them again, louder this time. I failed because I wasn't ready. That distinction mattered. It changed everything. He replayed the event again, but differently now. Not to torture himself, but to analyze it. The nerves. The rushing. The lack of experience performing in front of people. The pressure he'd never trained for because he'd always practiced alone. For the first time, failure felt less like a verdict and more like feedback. Brutal feedback, sure, but honest. He laughed suddenly, short and bitter. Of course I messed up, he said to the empty room. I've never done that before. The thought was obvious, almost stupid, but it hit him like truth. Why had he expected perfection on his first real attempt? Why had he believed one performance defined everything? His chest tightened again, but this time it wasn't panic. It was something sharper. Determination. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that grows in silence after you've been embarrassed enough that you stop caring what people think. He stood up slowly and looked at the corner of the room again. This time, it didn't feel like an accusation. It felt like a challenge. I'm not done, he said. His voice was quiet, but steady. There was no dramatic music. No cinematic moment. Just a kid, alone, deciding something for himself for the first time. He wasn't doing this to prove teachers wrong, or classmates, or anyone else. He was doing it because quitting would hurt worse than trying again. That night, he practiced. Not like before. Not chasing perfection. Not dreaming about applause. He practiced like someone who'd been humbled. Like someone who understood how far they still had to go. He slowed everything down. Focused on the basics. Fixed the mistakes that had destroyed him on stage. Over and over again. No shortcuts. No ego. His hands moved with intention now. His mind stayed present. When frustration showed up, he didn't run from it. He leaned into it. Every mistake became information instead of shame. Every weak spot became a target instead of a reason to quit. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. He didn't notice. He felt grounded for the first time since the failure. Like he was back where he belonged. Not on a stage. Not in front of people. Here. Doing the work. Owning his process. Before finally lying down to sleep, exhausted but calm, he stared at the ceiling and smiled faintly. Not because things were suddenly fixed. Not because he felt confident. But because he knew something important had changed. He had stopped asking, "Am I good enough?" and started asking, "How good can I get if I don't stop?" That was the breaking moment. Not when he fell apart, but when he decided he wouldn't stay broken. After that night, everything got quieter. Not on the outside. School was still loud. Hallways still packed. Kids still talking about nothing and everything. Teachers still doing their thing. Life kept moving like it always had. But inside him, something clicked into a different gear. The noise faded. The excuses disappeared. What replaced them wasn't hype or motivation. It was discipline. Plain and boring and powerful. He didn't tell anyone what happened that night. Didn't announce some comeback. Didn't post quotes or act different in public. In fact, he got even quieter. If people thought he was invisible before, now he was a ghost. And that was exactly how he wanted it. The grind became routine. Not exciting. Not inspirational. Just consistent. He practiced when he felt like it, and more importantly, when he didn't. On days when school drained him. On nights when his brain begged for rest. On weekends when everyone else was out living, laughing, forgetting about Monday. He stayed in. He worked. There were no big leaps. No movie montage breakthroughs. Progress came in inches. Sometimes less. Some days, it felt like he was moving backward. But he showed up anyway. Because now he understood something most people never learn. Talent might get attention, but consistency builds monsters. He broke everything down to the smallest pieces. The stuff nobody claps for. The boring fundamentals. The uncomfortable repetitions. He studied his mistakes like they were enemies he needed to understand before defeating. When something felt weak, he didn't avoid it. He attacked it. Over and over. Until it stopped being weak. The crazy part was how lonely it got. Not sad lonely. Focused lonely. The kind where you realize how much noise you've cut out. He stopped scrolling as much. Stopped caring about trends. Stopped comparing himself to people online because it messed with his head. Comparison made you rush. And rushing was how he'd failed last time. Instead, he measured himself against yesterday. That was it. Was I better than I was last week? Did I fix one thing today? If the answer was yes, that was enough. Sleep became optional some nights. Not because he was reckless, but because time felt precious now. He knew exactly how easy it was to lose momentum. How comfort sneaks in and convinces you to slow down. He didn't hate rest. He just didn't let it turn into excuses. At school, nobody noticed the change. That almost made him smile. Teachers still treated him the same. Classmates still talked over him. Some even forgot about the event entirely. The failure that had once felt so massive faded from everyone's memory except his. And instead of resenting that, he used it. No pressure. No expectations. Just space to grow. There were moments when doubt tried to creep back in. Late nights. Heavy eyes. That quiet voice asking, "What if this still isn't enough?" He didn't argue with it anymore. He just kept working. Because effort was the only answer that shut doubt up consistently. His body changed. Not dramatically. Subtly. Movements smoother. Reactions quicker. Control tighter. Things that used to require full concentration became automatic. Muscle memory kicked in. Confidence followed, slowly, like it was testing the waters before fully committing. What really changed was his mindset. Failure stopped terrifying him. He'd already survived it. Publicly. Embarrassingly. What else could the world really do to him now? That realization was freeing. Fear lost its grip when it stopped being unknown. Some nights, frustration still hit hard. He'd mess up something he thought he'd mastered and feel that old anger flare up. But instead of spiraling, he'd pause, breathe, and reset. Progress wasn't a straight line. He accepted that. Fighting reality only wasted energy. Weeks passed. Then months. Seasons changed. He barely noticed. His life narrowed into something simple. School, home, grind, repeat. To outsiders, it probably looked sad, like he was missing out. But to him, it felt purposeful. Like every rep, every correction, every late night was stacking towards something bigger. And still, he told no one. Not his parents. Not his friends. Not even himself, fully. He didn't fantasize about redemption moments anymore. Didn't imagine applause or shocked faces. That mindset was dangerous. It made you perform for outcomes instead of improvement. He stayed focused on the work. Let results be a side effect. There was a strange peace in that. A calm confidence that didn't need validation. He stopped craving approval because he was finally proud of the effort itself. Even on bad days. Especially on bad days. One evening, he caught his reflection again. Same mirror. Same room. But the kid looking back felt different. Still quiet. Still unnoticed. But not small anymore. There was weight behind his eyes now. Like someone who knew exactly what he was capable of, even if nobody else did. He smiled, just a little. Not because he felt ready, but because he knew he was getting there. And this time, when the moment came, he wouldn't be stepping out unprepared. He'd been grinding in silence. And silence, he was learning, was where the real power lived. The unexpected chance didn't show up with fireworks or some big announcement that made everyone stop and stare. It came the same way most real opportunities do. Quietly, almost inconveniently, like it wasn't sure he was ready for it yet. By this point, his life had settled into that tight, focused rhythm. School, home, grind, repeat. Days blurred together. He wasn't counting time anymore. He wasn't waiting for anything. That was the dangerous part, but also the powerful part. When you stop chasing moments, you start being ready for them. The day it happened started like any other. Same hallways, same noise, same faces that still didn't really see him. He sat in class half listening, half replaying something he'd been working on the night before. He was in that zone, that quiet mental space where the outside world feels distant, when the teacher cleared her throat. "All right, listen up," she said. "We need a volunteer." That sentence barely registered. Teachers were always asking for volunteers, and it was almost never him. He kept his head down out of habit, pen moving slowly across the page. Then she added, "One of our participants dropped out last minute." We need someone to fill the spot. Something in his chest tightened. Not panic. Recognition. Like his instincts woke up before his brain did. He looked up, just slightly. The teacher scanned the room. A few kids avoided eye contact. A couple shook their heads immediately. Others whispered, calculating whether it was worth the effort. She sighed, clearly stressed. Anyone? The room stayed quiet. And that's when she looked at him. Not because she believed in him. Not because she suddenly saw his potential. But because he was there. Available. Unproblematic. The safe choice. You, she said, pointing. You did this before, right? The room shifted. Heads turned. That old feeling flickered, exposure, vulnerability, but it didn't take over this time. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Do you think you can handle it? She asked, already half committed. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to say no. This was risky. Sudden. Public. Exactly the kind of situation that had crushed him before. But another part of him, the part built during all those silent nights, was calm. Yes, he said. Just one word. No hesitation. A few kids exchanged looks. Someone raised an eyebrow. No one clapped. No one hyped him up. And that was fine. He wasn't doing this for them. The opportunity wasn't even that glamorous. Not a huge competition. Not some life-changing stage. Just another event. Another room. Another audience that wasn't expecting much. But that was the beauty of it. Low expectations meant freedom. The rest of the day crawled by. Every class felt longer than usual. Not because he was nervous, but because he was aware. Hyper-aware. His mind ran through scenarios, not to scare him, but to prepare him. What if the setup is different? What if something goes wrong? What if I mess up again? Each question meant the same answer. I'll handle it. When he got home, he didn't rush. Didn't panic practice. He took his time. Ate. Hydrated. Let his body stay calm. This wasn't the desperate version of him from before. This was controlled. Intentional. He ran through his routine, focusing on fundamentals, not flash. Trusting the work he'd put in. As he got ready, he realized something wild. He wasn't hoping to impress anyone. He wasn't praying for validation. He just wanted to execute. Clean. Focused. Honest. That alone felt like a win. The venue was smaller than last time. The lighting softer. The crowd thinner. Mostly students and a few adults who looked more tired than judgmental. He stood off to the side, waiting his turn, watching others go up. Some did well. Some didn't. Nobody made a big deal out of anything. It wasn't that kind of environment. When his name was called, his heart rate picked up, but it stayed under control. No shaking. No tunnel vision. Just adrenaline doing what adrenaline was supposed to do. He stepped forward. For a split second, the memory of his last failure tried to flash in his mind. The silence. The awkward claps. The pity. But he didn't let it stay. He took a breath, grounded himself, and started. And immediately, something felt different. Not perfect. Not magical. But solid. His movements were smoother. His timing better. When a small mistake happened, and one did, he didn't freeze. He adjusted. Kept going. That alone was a victory. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He was just doing what he'd trained to do. The room leaned in without realizing it. Not dramatically. Just subtly. Conversations stopped. Phones lowered. A few heads tilted. Attention shifted. He felt it, but he didn't chase it. He stayed locked in. When he finished, there was a pause. A short one. Then applause. Real applause. Not explosive. Not screaming. But genuine. Consistent. Respectful. He nodded slightly and stepped back, heart pounding, but not from fear. From relief. From confirmation. He'd done it. Not won. Not conquered. But executed. People didn't rush him afterward. No crowd. No sudden fame. But a couple of kids gave him that look. The one that says, "Huh, okay." One teacher smiled and said, "Nice job." And for once, it didn't sound like pity. As he packed up to leave, the realization hit him slowly, like warmth spreading through his chest. This wasn't the big moment. This was the door. The thing about unexpected chances is they don't announce what they're leading to. They just ask one question, "Are you ready?" And this time, he was. Everything didn't change all at once. Not with a lightning strike or some movie-style slow clap that turned into a standing ovation. That's not how real turning points work. Real change is sneaky. It shows up disguised as just another moment, until you look back and realize nothing was ever the same again. The event ended. People left. Chairs scraped the floor. The room emptied out like it always did. And just like that, it was over. No trophies. No spotlight. No dramatic speech. He walked out with his bag slung over his shoulder, blending back into the crowd like he always had. If someone passed him in the hallway, they probably wouldn't have guessed anything significant had just happened. But inside him, something had shifted permanently. For the first time, he wasn't replaying mistakes on the walk home. He wasn't mentally apologizing to himself for trying. He wasn't shrinking. His mind was calm, quiet, grounded. He kept thinking about one thing, not the applause, not the looks, not the nice job, but the fact that he stayed in control, that he handled pressure instead of letting it handle him. That realization hit harder than any compliment ever could. The next day at school felt different, not because the world changed, but because he did. He walked the same hallways, heard the same noise, saw the same faces. But his posture was different, subtle, almost unnoticeable. He didn't rush, didn't avoid eye contact as much, didn't try to disappear. A couple of kids nodded at him in passing. Small thing, probably meaningless to them. To him, it felt huge. Not because he needed their approval, but because it confirmed something he already knew. People notice energy before they notice results. Then it started happening more. A teacher asked him a follow-up question in class. Not a gotcha question. A real one. Like she actually wanted to hear his answer. When he spoke, nobody interrupted him. Nobody talked over him. The room listened. Just for a moment. But that moment mattered. At lunch, someone slid into the empty seat across from him. "That thing you did the other day was actually fire," they said casually, like it wasn't a big deal. He shrugged, played it cool, but inside his chest something tightened. Not ego. Validation. The healthy kind. The kind that says, "You're not crazy. This is real." Word traveled faster than he expected. Not viral. Not dramatic. Just whispers. "Did you see him? I didn't know he could do that. He's actually good." The same people who once overlooked him now spoke his name with curiosity instead of indifference. But here's the part nobody talks about. That attention scared him. Not because he didn't want it, but because he knew how fragile moments could be. He knew how fast hype fades. He'd seen it happen to others. One good performance doesn't mean anything if you can't back it up. And deep down, he wasn't interested in being a moment. He wanted to be undeniable. So he doubled down. While people were still processing that one performance, he went right back to the grind. Same routine. Same silence. Same late nights. If anything, he got more disciplined. Because now there was something new at stake. Not his reputation, but his standards. The biggest change wasn't external. It was how he saw himself. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel like an imposter chasing something he didn't deserve. He felt like a work in progress. And that distinction mattered. Imposters quit when exposed. People in progress lean in. Another opportunity came quicker than expected. Bigger room. Bigger crowd. This time, his name was suggested, not chosen out of convenience. Let him do it, someone said. He's good. That sentence echoed in his head for hours. He didn't freak out. Didn't celebrate. He treated it like what it was. Another rep under pressure. Another chance to apply what he'd built. But this time, expectations existed. People were watching differently now. Not waiting for failure, but watching for confirmation. The night before the event, he barely slept. Not from nerves. From excitement mixed with responsibility. This wasn't about proving people wrong anymore. This was about proving consistency. The hardest thing to do in any field. When he stepped into that room, he felt it immediately. The energy, the anticipation, the way conversations softened when he walked by. Nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. They were curious. That scared him more than doubt ever did. He took a breath. And then he delivered. Not flawless. Not superhuman. But controlled. Confident. Intentional. When something went slightly off, he adjusted without panic. When the pressure rose, he rose with it. The room didn't just clap this time. It reacted. Audible reactions. Heads nodding. People leaning forward. That sound, people being genuinely impressed, hit different. When he finished, the applause was louder. Longer. Real. Someone whistled. A teacher shook his hand. "You've been working," she said. Not a question. A statement. That was it. That was the moment. Not because he suddenly became famous or successful, but because the narrative flipped. He wasn't the kid who surprised people anymore. He was the kid people expected things from. And expectations change everything. From that day on, he was no longer invisible. Not to teachers. Not to classmates. Not to himself. Opportunities showed up more often. Invitations. Suggestions. Chances he never would have been considered for before. People started asking how long he'd been doing this. Where he learned it. What his plans were. He smiled when they asked. Because the truth was simple. They hadn't discovered him. He had discovered himself. And once that happens, the world eventually catches up. This was where everything changed. Not because people finally believed in him, but because he no longer needed them to. Celebration doesn't arrive all at once. It sneaks in quietly, disguised as respect, wrapped in moments so subtle you almost miss them if you're not paying attention. For him, it started with the way people said his name now. Not rushed. Not careless. Said with intent like it meant something. The halls felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just aware. He'd catch people glancing at him, not in that awkward, judgmental way, but like they were recalculating something they thought they understood. Teachers paused longer when he spoke. Coaches nodded instead of correcting. Classmates waited for his reaction before reacting themselves. That's when he realized it. He wasn't chasing relevance anymore. He had it. But the weird part, it didn't feel like winning. It felt like responsibility. Because when people finally see you, they also start expecting you to stay visible. Invitations started stacking up. Not flashy ones. Real ones. Opportunities with weight behind them. Someone asked if he'd consider leading. Another asked if he could mentor. A younger kid, someone who reminded him a little too much of his old self, approached him after class and said, "How'd you get good at that?" That question hit him harder than applause ever did. He didn't give some corny answer, didn't fake wisdom. He just told the truth. About the hours, the failures, the nights nobody saw, the moments he almost quit. The kid nodded, wide-eyed, like he'd just been handed a map out of a maze. That's when the shift really locked in. Because celebration isn't just people clapping for you. It's people seeing themselves in you. Word spread outside the building. Parents, other schools, community events. His name started coming up in conversations he wasn't even in. Someone mentioned him to someone else, who mentioned him to someone else, and suddenly doors cracked open that had always been sealed shut. He didn't burst through them. He walked in calmly. At the next big event, the one that mattered more than any before, his name was announced first. Not last minute. Not as filler. First. The crowd reacted instantly. Not screaming. Not losing their minds. But that hum, that low, collective murmur of anticipation. People leaned forward. Phones came out. Eyes locked in. This time, he didn't feel pressure. He felt grounded. Because he wasn't performing for approval anymore. He was sharing something he'd earned the right to share. And he crushed it. Not just technically. Emotionally. The room moved with him. You could feel it. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but heavy. Focused. When he finished, people stood. Not all at once. Not on cue. One by one. Real. Earned. The kind of standing ovation you never forget because it isn't forced. Afterward, people lined up. Compliments. Questions. Offers. Someone said, "I've been doing this for years, and that was special." Another said, "You're going places." A parent wiped tears from their eyes and thanked him for inspiring their kid. He smiled. He thanked them. He stayed humble. But inside, the kid who used to get ignored was screaming. Not in an ego way. In a healing way. Because all those moments from before, the laughter, the silence, the being overlooked, they finally made sense. They weren't punishment. They were preparation. They built something in him applause never could: resilience, discipline, hunger. Celebration didn't make him soft. It sharpened him. He still trained when nobody was watching. Still practiced when the praise faded. Still showed up early, left late. Because deep down, he knew something dangerous. Celebration is temporary if you stop deserving it. And he refused to go backwards. One day, scrolling through his phone late at night, he stumbled across an old video. An old clip of himself from years ago. Awkward. Unpolished. Trying way too hard. He watched it all the way through. Didn't cringe. Didn't laugh. He nodded. "That kid didn't quit," he whispered. And that's when it hit him. He wasn't celebrated because he was talented. He was celebrated because he survived being ignored long enough to grow. The same people who once overlooked him now spoke his name with pride. The same spaces that once felt closed now welcomed him openly. But the biggest win wasn't the attention. It was the fact that he could walk into any room now, full or empty, and still feel complete. Because he knew who he was. And the world finally did too. But the story wasn't over yet. Not even close. Because celebration is powerful. But legacy, that's built in what you do next. Years later, people would ask him when it all changed. They'd expect some clean answer. One moment. One decision. One big break that flipped the switch and turned his life around. He never gave them what they wanted. He'd smile, shake his head, and say, "It didn't happen like that." Because the truth was messier. Quieter. Harder to explain. It changed in the moments nobody remembers. It changed when he kept showing up after being ignored. When he practiced in silence while the world was busy clapping for someone else. When he swallowed embarrassment instead of letting it turn into bitterness. When he chose discipline over comfort again and again, with no guarantee it would ever pay off. That's the part people miss. They only see the celebration. They don't see the patience. They see confidence. They don't see how many times it was shaken. They see talent. They don't see how it was built. Standing on a stage one night, lights warm on his face, crowd quiet and listening, he scanned the room. He saw kids sitting in the back, half hidden, unsure if they belonged there. He recognized that look instantly. He'd worn it for years. The look of someone who wants something badly but doesn't yet believe they're allowed to want it. And for a split second, the noise faded. He wasn't thinking about his performance. He wasn't thinking about his reputation. He was thinking about that kid in the back. The one nobody noticed yet. The one being underestimated in real time. That was the moment he understood the lesson clearly. Being ignored isn't a sign you're insignificant. It's a test of how long you're willing to believe in yourself without witnesses. After the event, a kid approached him. Nervous. Hands shaking a little. "I don't think I'm good enough," the kid said quietly. "Nobody really notices me." He looked at them and didn't rush his answer. "I know," he said. "That doesn't mean anything." The kid frowned. Confused. "It doesn't mean you're bad," he continued. "It just means you're early." That line stuck. It spread. People quoted it, put it in captions, turned it into motivation posts. But when he said it, it wasn't meant to be inspirational. It was meant to be honest. Because most people quit in the early phase. Not because they fail, but because they're invisible. They mistake silence for rejection. They confuse lack of attention with lack of potential. And that's where dreams die. Not from failure, from neglect. He never forgot what it felt like to be overlooked. He carried that memory like armor. It kept him grounded when praise got loud. It kept him hungry when success got comfortable. It kept him human. He started giving back quietly, showing up to small events, talking to kids who reminded him of himself. No cameras, no announcements, just presence. Because someone had once given him space to grow, even if they didn't realize it at the time. And now, he was doing the same. When people asked him for advice, he didn't talk about talent. He talked about time, about patience, about staying consistent when nobody claps, about learning to be proud of effort before results. Anyone can work hard when they're celebrated, he'd say. The real ones work hard when they're forgotten. That became his standard. And it worked. Not because it made life easy, but because it made him unbreakable. Looking back, he didn't wish he'd been noticed earlier. He didn't resent the years of being ignored. Those years taught him how to listen, how to observe, how to build quietly, how to develop something real instead of something flashy. They gave him depth, and depth lasts longer than hype. The lesson wasn't about becoming famous. It wasn't about proving people wrong. It wasn't even about success. It was about understanding that your value isn't determined by how loudly the world reacts to you. Some of the strongest people in the room are the ones you haven't noticed yet. Some of the greatest stories are being written in silence right now. And some kid, somewhere, feels invisible, doubting themselves, wondering if they should quit. If they could hear this story, this is what he'd want them to know. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need applause to improve. And you don't need anyone's belief to keep going. If you're ignored right now, good. That means you have time to build without pressure. Time to fail without an audience. Time to become dangerous in the quiet. One day, they'll ask where you came from. And when they do, you won't need to explain. Because the work will speak for you. Sometimes the world ignores you because it hasn't met your future yet.